Hello and welcome back to the MMA Bar. Today we're going to discuss the 1 in 1,000 career of Donald Cerrone, his most memorable moments in the UFC, his records, and his eventual retirement from the MMA. Even if you're a new fan of MMA, it'd be hard not to know the man who's transcended the sport for decades and has broken many records during his time. We're talking of Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Nicknamed Cowboy, he was one of the household names in the world of MMA. His motto, anytime, anywhere, anyone, has given him a renowned status among UFC/MMA fans. While the quote is often thrown around in the sport, Cowboy has consistently stuck to it. The man has had 55 fights across the UFC, WEC, and Ring of Fire. While his long and illustrious career ended up on a 6-fight win streak, Cerrone at some point held the record for the most wins in UFC history, most finishes, and most post-fight bonus awards in UFC history. But before we get into his achievements, retirement, and his last fight, let's do a quick rundown of the future UFC Hall of Famer's career. After high school, Donald Cerrone began a career in mixed martial arts at the Freedom Fighters Gym in Colorado in 2006. In 2009, Cerrone fought Jamie Varner, who was at the time the WEC lightweight champion, at a WEC bout. At the end of the fight, Varner was announced the victor by means of a technical decision following a very competitive showpiece that won the Fight of the Night award. Cerrone illegally used a knee on Varner's eyebrow temple while laying on the floor, refusing to accept total defeat. Cerrone and Varner agreed on another fight, which was delayed till 2010 due to an injury affecting Varner's hand. In the fight, Cerrone won unanimously as he triumphed in each of the rounds. After starting his MMA career on the regional circuit with the Ring of Fire in Colorado and the WEC, where he once competed for the WEC lightweight title, Cerrone made his UFC debut at UFC 126 in February 2011, taking on Paul Kelly in what was named the evening's fight of the night. Cerrone scored a second-round submission victory, but it was what was going on outside the cage that made the moment. Cerrone later revealed he got the call for his UFC debut during a time when his grandfather was in the hospital. He still went out and put on a spectacular performance. Cerrone found out about his grandfather's passing immediately after the fight. This fight showed the kind of fighter and man Cerrone is, and that won him many fans' hearts. In 2011, the UFC onboarded Cerrone to the roster after the acquisition of the WEC. A 6-fight winning streak in 13 months led him to a title eliminator against Nate Diaz, which he lost by a unanimous decision. Back-to-back victories over Jeremy Stephens and Melvin Gillard were followed by a loss to Anthony Pettis. From May 2013 to May 2015, Cerrone fought 10 times and compiled a 9-1 record in the stretch. The hot streak ensured him a long-awaited UFC title fight against Rafael dos Anjos, though he lost by first-round TKO. From January 2017 to May 2019, Cerrone went 4-4 with victories over Yancy Medeiros, Mike Perry, Alexander Hernandez, and Al La Quinta. The La Quinta win turned out to be his final victory. His last 7 fights resulted in 6 losses and a no contest. Here are some of the most memorable moments of his career. When Cerrone faced Rick Story at UFC 202, the knockout is consistently mentioned by many in the MMA community as one of their all-time most memorable moments from Cerrone. After blocking a left hand from Story, Cerrone unleashed fury. A left hand to the head, a right hand to the body, another left upstairs, and topped off with a big head kick. Cerrone swarmed his opponent until the fight was halted in the second round. Another thing that makes Cerrone so beloved by the MMA community is that he is the living embodiment of that crazy fighter who's willing to throw down with anyone at any time. Perhaps the greatest example of this comes from his performance in January of 2015. First, Cerrone dispatched a then up-and-coming undefeated fighter in Miles Jury, sweeping the scorecards. Then Cerrone pulled off a surprise move by replacing Eddie Alvarez against Benson Henderson just 15 days later. After losing 2 WEC title fights to Henderson, Cerrone was able to come away with another decision win just 15 days after his last. Per MMA Junkie, that still currently stands as the 3rd quickest turnaround between fights in modern UFC history. The years 2017 and 2018 were not kind to Cerrone. After moving up to welterweight in 2016 and scoring 4 finishes, Cerrone dropped 4 of his next 5, losing to the likes of George Masvidal, Robbie Lawler, Darren Till, and Leon Edwards. Many felt despite Cerrone needing just one more KO/TKO to set the UFC records for most wins and finishes, his best days might be behind him. But Cerrone, who had his share of moments in his home of Colorado, turned back the clock against Mike Perry in the co-main event grudge match. Cerrone managed to lock a hold of Perry's arm and not let go until he got a tap, sending the crowd into a frenzy. With his family, including his newborn son, present for the event, it was no doubt one of the most emotional moments in Cerrone's career. That night, he broke the UFC's most wins and finishes records. In another memorable moment of his career, Cerrone made a rather stale UFC 206 event a memorable and fun night. Cerrone played a role in that through his co-main event bout with Matt Brown. The two traded blows throughout the first rounds, with each man scoring at least one knockdown, and Brown nearly getting a triangle choke late in the first round. While some felt the bout was too tough to score, Cerrone prevented that from being needed in the third with a switch kick to the head that ended things. For his first fight before his retirement, he faced fellow veteran Jim Miller. Jim Miller got a taste of revenge, and it came in the final fight of Cowboy Cerrone's career. The opening round saw Cerrone's length giving Miller problems in the early exchanges as he kept Miller at a distance with some really solid front kicks. Miller eventually negated the reach advantage by rushing forward to snatch a takedown as he began working with Cowboy on his back. Even when Cerrone reversed out of a bad position with punches coming to his head, Miller was still more active, throwing elbows and threatening with submissions. On the restart in the second round, Miller was happy to trade strikes with Cerrone, but it was the both fighters threw kicks and Miller got an opportunity for the guillotine choke. As soon as Miller saw the opening for the submission, he locked his hands and fell back into his guard, and it was only a matter of time before Cerrone had no choice but to tap out. Cerrone eventually tapped to the submission, with the end of the fight coming at 1 minute 32 seconds into the second round. As soon as the fight ended, Cerrone removed his gloves and hat, laying them in the middle of the octagon before announcing his retirement from mixed martial arts. Announcing his retirement, Cerrone said, "I don't love it anymore. It's hard for me to get up, and this is the longest camp I've had in a long time. I just don't love it anymore. I'm going to be a movie star. It's time to bow out. One hell of a career. Thank you so much, UFC." Cowboy is one of the most beloved fighters in the history of the sport, and that was proven by the feedback he received from his fellow fighters after making his announcement. BJ Penn tweeted, "Thank you, Cowboy, an absolute legend and great guy." Terrence McKinney tweeted, "It's been an honor, Donald Cerrone, you the man." Bilal Muhammad tweeted, "Congrats, legend, Mr. Anywhere, Anyone, Anytime." Billy Quarantillo tweeted, "Dang, Cowboy, straight up legend of the sport." Vince Morales tweeted, "Dang, Cowboy pulling on all the heartstrings." Jared Vandera tweeted, "We're going to miss you, Cowboy. Good win for Jim Miller." Ariane Carnelesi tweeted, "Congratulations, Cowboy." Ryan Quinn, "What a legendary night, Donald Cowboy Cerrone. Thank you for all you've done for our sport." Alon Juban tweeted, "That's sad for MMA, but a new chapter for the movie star legend Cowboy Cerrone. All love and respect to my friend." Patrick Coate tweeted, "Happy retirement, Cowboy. It was an honor to share the octagon with you." Kyle Noak tweeted, "The best to ever do it. Hats off, Cerrone. Love you, mate." Dan Ige tweeted, "Congratulations, Cowboy, on an amazing career. Thank you for all of the great fights." Cowboy Cerrone retired on July 2nd, 2022 as the fighter with the second most wins in the UFC history, second most finishes in UFC history, most post-fight bonuses in UFC history at 18, and the most knockdowns in UFC history, among other records. Thank you all for watching this video. That's all for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell.